The rumors of his return from last month were vastly over-exaggerated, but George Lucas does have a couple of things to mention in regards to modern-day Star Wars that, frankly, Disney, the white slavers as he likes to call them, might not think all that highly of. But George Lucas rejects that Star Wars critics who think the first 6 films are all white men. It's like, oh my god, okay. It's been a second since I've watched A New Hope, because I'm not the biggest Star Wars fan, but I understand how important they are to culture. Isn't it a conversation, or at least one of the first scenes, okay? If not the first 2 characters that you see on the screen are 2 robots, but the first 2 humanoid characters that you see are Darth Vader and Princess Leia, and she ends up more or less winning that verbal altercation. But whatever, right? Like, it's just all white guys, right? From toes to titties, from episode 1, where you have Obi-Wan Kenobi and Qui-Gon Jinn protecting Princess Amidala. Okay, like, you just run all the way from that, all the way through the hijinks that all the cast gets into. It's just all white guys, right? Most of the people are aliens. Well, George, it's not most of the people are aliens as much as you wanted to think, well, Jar Jar's going to be the key to everything. There is a smattering of aliens. Okay, quite a bit. So the premise is flawed, and the critiques are poor, so what are we talking about here? Well, thankfully, this interview gets a lot more interesting. George Lucas got candid about criticism of the first 6 Star Wars films during a conversation at the Cannes Film Festival on Friday. When speaking about the success of the franchise ahead of receiving the festival's honorary Palme d'Or, Lucas reflected on some of the negative comments he's received over the years. And there's been some candid shots of Lucas out in the wild over the past few years because, frankly, well, the man's celebrated his 80th birthday or something like that, and he hadn't been looking all that good. Had been looking like the next few birthdays aren't necessarily promised, but he was looking a lot better this time around, so thankfully he got over whatever he did, or potentially could have been suffering from. They would say it's all white men. Lucas said to the film's critics, most of them are aliens. The idea you're supposed to accept people for who they are, whether they're big and furry, or whether they're green, or whatever. The idea is all people are equal. But yeah, when you're setting your story in an intergalactic setting, you're going to be coming across non-human, non-white characters. Go figure. Lucas went on to say, Lucas went on to say, that the only beings, there we go, it's not begins at all, in the Star Wars universe who are discriminated against were the robots. Yeah, exactly. They're treated as second-class citizens because, well, they're robots. It's a way of saying, people are always discriminating against something, and sooner or later, that's what's going to happen, he said. I mean, we're already starting with AI saying, well, we can't trust those robots, and again, I don't necessarily think that that's a wrong sentiment. As for the issue of race, Lucas said, in the first one, there were a few Tunisians who were dark, and in the second one, I had Billy Williams, and the prequels, which they were also criticizing, for the writing, I had Sam Jackson. He wasn't a scoundrel like Lando. He was on top of the Jedi. Yeah, exactly. He was the greatest swordsman in the universe, in the galaxy, rather. And I look forward to Disney's revisionist history that, no, he didn't die when Palpatine threw him out the window. He landed on a mattress factory. It's fine. Lucas also responded to criticism about the depiction of women in Star Wars films, saying, oh my Christ, who do you think the heroes are in these stories? Who do you think Princess Leia was? She was the head of the rebellion. She's the one who's taking this young kid who doesn't know anything about this bolsterous, I know everything guy, can't do anything, and trying to save the rebellion with these clowns. And it's the same thing with Queen Amidala. No, it's just like the whole Sarah Connor and Ellen Ripley thing. Okay, you're a misogynist, you just hate women in film, except for, some of the best and most well-developed characters are them, but you can go ahead and dismiss them because they're just too obvious of examples, and this is what the media literacy, diverse cinematic diet crowd would go ahead and say, but they're all idiots, and I don't care about their opinion. Because at the end of the day, when they lose an argument about Star Wars, they'll just resort to the old, tried, tested, and true rejoinder of, it's a movie about space wizards intended for children. He continued, You can't put a woman in pants and expect her to be a hero. Wow! Now they can wear dresses, they can wear whatever they want. It's brains and their ability to think and plan to be a logistical. That's what the hero is. Yes, exactly. A hero uses their best traits, their best attributes to the most effective means possible in order to achieve their goals. That is something that Disney has failed to encapsulate with their Disney stuff. Because they think that Rey is a hero for the simple fact that she's a woman. And that that in order to be a hero, you can't have any flaws. Where it's like, wow, one of the most revered and regarded cinematic heroes of all time is fraught with inadequacies, with failures. Hell, what makes those characters compelling? Talking about Luke Skywalker, after all. In fact, Disney doubled down on his loserdom by making him a alien titty milk drinker. Lucas is on hand at Cannes to receive the honorary Palme d'Or, which is presented to him at the festival's closing ceremony on Saturday. That would have already happened. He's a visionary behind, yes, Star Wars, Indiana Jones, Willow, Howard the Duck. Excuse me, how are you not? Listing all of his credentials, American Graffiti franchises, the founder of Lucasfilm, yes, the LucasArts, the video games branch that produced so many great Star Wars and Indiana Jones based video games, but Kathleen Kennedy decided we don't need any of that stuff. But then it's so good recently, and earlier this year Bob Iger discovered that kids like video games in 2024. VFX company Industrial Lights and Magic, yeah, ILM, that was the brainchild of George Lucas, you're welcome. And high quality audio design system THX, and oh yeah, that at the beginning of every good movie, yeah, again, thanks to George. Festival de Cannes has always held a special place in my heart. Yay, I was surprised to be elated. The first film, THX 1138, was selected to be shown for the program for the first time. Directors called the Director's Fortnight. Since then, I don't really care about all that stuff. The most recent Indiana Jones installment, the Derp of Derpstiny, premiered at Cannes last year. George had nothing to do with it. Neither did Spielberg, the two that worked together to make the original Indiana Jones trilogy. Funny, the only Indiana Jones films in existence. They did reconvene for this spin-off that was about a decade and a half ago, but then, yeah, they had nothing to do with Dial of Dysentery. And lo and behold, what ended up being the worst performing film in the franchise's history. It's very interesting, right? For as many critiques as George has about his own critics in regards to the OT and the prequel series, does he stick up and defend any of the decisions that Disney makes? Well, hell, recently we've seen, especially with the proxy battle that Bob Iger was entrenched in, he's going to go ahead and support Bob Iger, and how's that working out for everybody? Yeah, exactly as everybody thought. But just go ahead and apply the critiques that he points out right there, okay? Star Wars has always been about quality of somebody's character and not the color of their skin or where it's placed. And that's why people still resonate 45 years removed from the original trilogy. And while this prequel trilogy does get a second look some 20 years on, 25 in the case of The Phantom Menace, it's because they're adapting, even as clunkily with the prequels, these archetypal, timeless stories. What's Disney? They've released more Star Wars content than George ever did during his time with the franchise, which is wild to think about. Hell, they've done what? Five shows? How many live action series of television? Okay, you got three Mandalorian, Boba Fett, Obi-Wan, stupid Ahsoka now, and then we're on the precipice. Within a week we're going to be getting The Acolyte. There's 7 shows that I can think of off the top of my head, not to mention all of the animated stuff. What did George do? 6 films, The Clone Wars, and a couple of Ewok specials. Cool stuff that you can, at least for better or worse, reference. What can you actually reference? And all of that Disney stuff has come out post 2015. Can't make mention of any of it. Nothing. None of it has legacy, for better or for worse. For worse, everybody points to Rey and just the overall missed opportunity of the sequel trilogy, what it ended up doing to legacy characters, and how it managed to fantastically fumble a multi-billion-dollar bag. That's impressive. But for the stories that they tell, who goes back and unironically watches Obi-Wan, which was the most important and the highest viewed Star Wars show literally to ever be put to Disney Plus? How many people now are starting to realize that, The Mandalorian Season 3 was kind of crap, but now that I think about it, so was Season 2, and Was season 1 even worth it? It's like the only thing that we remember from that is Baby Yoda, and nobody, even at the time, thought much about the Book of Boba Fett. And Ahsoka, well, that's still putting people into comas. They've found the solution to insomnia, and it's just placed within the dialogue breaks in that laborious show. A reason to think that their next cinematic outing, whether it be the ill-fated feminist Charmin Obaid-Chinoy Rey movie, or Jon Favreau's clunky Mandalorian and Grogu, oh, that one could be good. Yeah, Jon Favreau also wrote Book of Boba Fett and that second-look disaster, The Mandalorian. Why would you think that his film is going to be any better? Star Wars is in trouble. It is not going to be getting any better anytime soon, and even the guy who created this stuff all the way back in 1977 sees the writing on the wall. But at this point in time, the man's got his billions of dollars. He's collecting his accolades after a lifetime of service to the industry, and now, well, he can throw as much shade as humanly possible, because now everybody who was looking at him thinking that, you know what, he's a hack for what he did with the prequel trilogy, but you know what, perhaps I treated you too harshly, and he is the chief example of that, and I can't necessarily say anybody's wrong for having that opinion. So with all that said, thank you all very much for the gift of your time. I've been Don Consuelo. I want you to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.